Thank you, James, and thank you, Alan, for telling us the real story about it. So next, we want to induct Lee Rankin. She's joined at the head table by son Will Rankin and her team of dual inductors, Carol Coulter, a friend and longtime admirer, and who was inducted last year into the Western North Carolina Ag Hall of Fame, and Dr. Jill Hamilton. Dr. Hamilton has been the County Extension Director for Watauga County for the past 15 years and has worked with Lee over the years in a number of capacities as a member of Extension's Advisory Committee with the Chamber of Commerce, Farm Bureau, and as a friend and colleague on a number of efforts to enhance agritourism in the high country. So I'd like to call on Carol, who is going to, or Jim's going to.
We arm wrestled before and I lost, so she made me go first. Thank you, and thank you, WNC Communities and Dean. Appreciate it, and NCDA and Caleb. This is it's a pleasure to be here to speak a little bit on behalf of Lee. I was introduced to Lee over 20 years ago when I came to Watauga County as the new, not so new anymore, Christmas tree extension agent. Lee had just moved to the area as a single parent with a very young little red-headed toddler who ain't little no more, little Will there. And she purchased property with a house and an abandoned apple farm, an apple orchard on the edge of a mountainside in a little community of Matney, which is about a 20-25 minute drive, depending on how fast you go. Obviously, you probably get there in 10. But her goal was to start a farm. And I always joke, and not so seriously, but seriously joke about how Watauga County now grows more second houses and vacation homes than we do crops these days. And that's been the case over the past 20 years. And so in a county and a part of the state up in the high country whose landscape is evolving due to these second homers and the vacation rental properties, escapees, and other transient souls who come to the mountains with farm dreams that a lot of times just don't materialize. They come and they realize what's involved in it, and it doesn't materialize. And I remember thinking at the time, well, here's another one of these transient dreamers who would be here and gone within a year or two. And I could not have been more wrong. Lee's dream materialized into something far more impactful and far more meaningful than anything I think even she could have imagined. She climbed a steep learning curve, suffering through many of the trials and tribulations that any farmer experiences, from the challenges of building and maintaining a farm, raising a barn, a child, growing a herd of alpacas, goats, sheep, chickens, and every picture book farm essential that one can conjure up along the way. But some of her farming curveballs thrown at her, though, were not that typical. I think she's been the first and only call at the Extension office regarding a mountain lion attack on alpacas. In the game of New Farm Bingo, that was a new one to me, but Lee was checked that box. So from the humble beginnings of a farmhouse and a defunct apple orchard, Apple Hill Farm today is one of the most successful agritourism operations in the state of North Carolina. Since opening her farm to tours, which literally evolved from accidental tourists simply coasting up into her driveway to see the apple farm, her Apple Hill Farm has hosted over 90,000 visitors, many of whom have never seen a chicken in a coop, or a cow grazing on grass, or fed a goat from their hands, or heard a donkey bray. And Lee has evolved with it, becoming one of our region's and state's biggest advocate and experts in agritourism. Her farm store is unique in its own right. I don't know many farm stores that carry alpaca wool socks that people literally fight over in gift baskets that she sometimes donates for raffle. or anyone who has successfully marketed bags of pakapoo to fertilize gardens with. In 2021, Lee was a finalist for the State Small Farmer of the Year Award. If you know, that's the award that North Carolina A&T State University recognizes and administers. And I'm still a little jaded that she didn't win it. A&T really missed out on the PR engine that Apple Hill Farm is, and that Lee has created through her social media and followers and buzz that her farm sort of organically achieved. I mean, her alpacas have been on ESPN during an App State game. But really what makes Lee the worthiest of candidates for this recognition is that she has also put in as much effort into her community and those that she relied on in her beginnings as she did the farm. She's really paid forward the support that she received from Extension, from businesses and civic groups, and from other organizations that she continues to serve and to now mentor and to now support. She's been a lead in our Extension Advisory Council for as long as I remember. I think since as long as I've been an agent. And while we as Extension directors are encouraged to rotate members on and off this committee, she's been such a good partner, I ain't letting her go. She is never going to be off my committee. Locally, she's served key roles with the Chambers of Commerce in Boone and Banner Elk. She's been in leadership with the Watauga County Farm Bureau, where she has served for a little over 10 years, I believe, and for which she also serves as a representative and delegate at the state and national level. And I appreciate you can see the Lee Rankin Farm Bureau support group is there. And even with all of this going on, she's even managed to put her journey into prose and release a second book, a memoir of her life and entree into farming. And let me tell you, after knowing Lee all of these years, it still felt like I was like sneaking peeks into a private journal reading her memoir. So Lee, congratulations on this recognition. You've been a Hall of Famer in our book for years now. I'm thrilled to see you accepting this honor, and we're all very proud to be a very small part of your farm family.
And now for part two. So the first thing you notice about Lee is her big smile. She has tons of energy, lots of enthusiasm, and she always will make time to share her knowledge and wisdom. So I met Lee, I don't even know how many years ago, but it was at a festival with alpacas. And she was like the highlight of the festival. There was all these booths, but everybody was around the alpaca enclosure where Lee was sharing lots of information about the animals. And so I think the opportunity to get people to interact with farm animals because they're just so disconnected, it stuns me all the time. I have a goat dairy, and the questions people ask about, do only the girl goats give milk? And you're just like, oh my God. You don't know how many times that gets asked. It's pretty amazing. It's like, well, where does milk come from, guys? But anyway, so connecting people is really, really important, and the fact that 90,000 visitors have been to her farm, and who knows how many of those are going to someday pursue some sort of farming endeavor, which we need, because again, as I said last year, if you look around this room, there ain't a lot of young people. So we need some of these young people to get interested in farming, to pick up the mantle as we all kind of get gray and older and might be stepping aside. The other really exciting things about Lee, so I worked for a little while with Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture, and we would do the farm tours like they do all across the state. And we asked Lee if she would do a workshop on how to host an excellent farm tour. You can have people on your farm and it can turn into disaster. So there are some things you really need to consider before you ever do that. So Lee agreed to host it at the farm in her, I have barn envy. She has the most gorgeous barn anyone has ever been in. Not only does it house animals, which it does, it has this excellent meeting space and activity area, and then upstairs in the loft is her store with all things alpaca. Not only do they fight over socks, but scarves, hats, mittens, all kinds of items up there. So Lee hosted this workshop, which, holy cow, we got some native wildlife here. And it was excellent. It really was helpful, and it was our probably best year of farm tours for the experiences that were provided to people visiting other farms on do's and don'ts, and that really important orientation when people first come on the farm where you set expectations. Because as you know, if you work with the public, they do the darndest things. And especially when it comes to interacting with animals, and especially if they don't know really anything about animals. The other really great thing that happens at Lee's farm, not only does she and her team conduct really fun and informative tours, but she hires lots of students from Appalachian State and trains them really well. They get livestock management and care training, they get how to conduct fun and informative farm tours, and they get really excellent customer service training. And I teach now at Appalachian. Many of these are my students, and the life experience that provides for them, the hands-on experience, and the education is far more than anything I can do in the classroom. It just is much better when they're out there interacting and leading and working with the public and working with the animals to really understand. I can talk about it in the classroom, but until you're actually doing it, it really does make an impact. And again, it's just so important that our students have an opportunity to get this kind of training. Lee also does consulting because her business and her model and her work to make a really excellent agritourism business. She does consulting across the state and nationally. She's well known, she's renowned, she helps people start, she helps people expand, she helps people improve, which is really important. Let's see what else. Lee's also the president of the NC Agritourism Network, a statewide network that works with farmers who are looking to add agritourism as a part of their business. For some farms, that is their business. For other farms, it's a piece of their business. And it's another way to diversify and increase sales, contacts. I know when people would come to my farm, they would recognize me at the farmer's market and say things, hey, you remember me? I was at your farm 3 years ago. Sure, I remember you. So good to see you again. But it does make that contact and build relationships. And it's all important to build your business in this ever competitive world, in the food world. So Lee also recently, as her work with Farm Bureau, collaborated with Appalachian State University and Watauga Cooperative Extension to bring Lee Grandin to the NC Meat Conference that was just recently held in Boone. And it was really awesome to have Temple there. It was a sold-out event, and the response that we've gotten from people who attended her presentation has been just overwhelmingly positive. So we gotta figure out a way to get her back again. Yeah. So anyways, Lee is involved in so many ways. Every time I turn around, whether it's the Farm City Banquet, something with the Chamber, something with Extension, something with Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture, there's Lee, always willing to give us her time, her energy, her expertise, and her experience. So it is my honor to induct Jane Lee Rankin into the Western North Carolina Hall of Fame.
So, in 2000, I met my first alpaca, and that's where I was chosen to run a farm. It wasn't my choice. I feel like I was chosen. So I started by meeting an alpaca, nurturing a dream for a little while, and then deciding upon the most crazy adventure of all, which was to move to the mountains of North Carolina with my son, who was 2 at the time that we arrived, and adorable, just as he is now. He was the one that gave me the bravery to do it. I couldn't have done it without him. But it's been a story of family. So not only my family of origin, and my brother Tom is here, I'm very happy to have him here, but also of creating family. And we think of family as being something that we're born into, but it's bigger than that. Family is something that we create. And I picked the best place in North Carolina, I'm a little jaded about that, to start a farm and to create a family. And I did that right outside of Banner Elk, North Carolina. And it was the piece of property that picked me, right? I found a piece of property I couldn't say no to, and the rest is kind of history. So, but there's circles of family. I could not do and would not have done what I've done without our farm family, our Apple Hill farm family, which are the people that work at the farm. I mean, I've got 2 people here that have been with our farm for over 10 years. That's hard to say, right? Unless you're born into it, it's hard to say somebody stays that long. And the students, like Carol said, that come to us from ASU and spend however long they can, how many ever hours they can, and are transformed by their work with the farm. It's also dependent upon the people that come to see us, right? The tourists that come to see us and come to take a tour, come to buy from the store, to lay their eyes on an alpaca for that very first time when magic happens, right? It is so, so important. We happen to be on top of the mountain. Our views are spectacular. Not trying to sell a farm or anything, but they're spectacular. But so beyond that is that Watauga County is a very special county. North Carolina is a very special state, but Watauga County is very special. And we have people like Jim and Carol who are part of our family, another circle of the family that we have. Our agricultural extension, I will put up against any other office in this state. We could have a contest about that. So they are amazing. And then there's the Watauga County Farm Bureau Board, which I got invited to be on, I think back in 2012. And sitting next to me was an inductee in the Western North Carolina Hall of Fame, R.G. Shipley, who sat next to me at every meeting, and every time I spoke up, he patted my hand. He was almost 100 years old, and he wanted to let me know that I had a voice in agriculture, and I was welcome in that family on that board. And I have been a family member of Farm Bureau, not just a member, but a family member of Farm Bureau at the local, state, and national level ever since then. And we have our Farm Bureau folks right here. And so from 2006, when R.G. Shipley was brought in, we have some of Mr. Shipley's family here, his son Bob and his grandson Gray, who have moved back to Watauga County and are now making their own way in the farming community and really stirring up a lot about beef and beef cattle and raising meat and those kinds of things. And I'm part of their family as well. Consider them part of my family. And then there is the North Carolina Agritourism Networking Association. We have a board that I know, well, how many of you serve on boards here of any kind? Our board is like family, and we would do anything to get together and find a time to be together because we love each other. And we do great work. We put a conference together, we put tours together, and it's always sort of this thing of, well, can I rotate into a different position so I don't have to leave? Because we love being together, we love the work that we do. And then the next family that I consider myself part of is the North Carolina Agricultural family, because I am a part of that. And I am proud to say that I am part of creating $110 billion in agricultural income in the state of North Carolina. And I take that very seriously. And I take what we do as a farm that's producing fiber from alpacas. We're producing poop from alpacas. But that's what we're producing. But what we're also producing is an experience for people to come to a farm and have an experience of a farm Because trust me, you don't want them at your farm every day when you're trying to get things into the field and do whatever it is that you do. So we're happy to play that role of educating family or educating people. And as Carol said, the questions, like how many times do we answer the same questions? We have Angora goats. The girls and boys have horns, and that's always a question. Like, oh, that's a boy. No, that's a girl. The girls have horns too. You know, like people just don't know because they're not around it and they've lost touch with it. And it's so important in this day and age to take people back to a farm and have them have that experience. And I know for a fact that when they leave, they are not the same person they came. So they've had an experience of a farm. So I am very honored. Thank you so much. This would not happen without a lot of support. This is not a solo journey. So thank you so much. And thank you, Western North Carolina communities. You guys are awesome.